Exposed, 3 sinister, haunted winter horror stories that reveal the unexplained and cursed truths. Claire hurried through the biting cold, the wind howling a warning to her weary soul. Rushing home after another grueling shift, the streetlights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance at the edges of her vision. A scraping sound echoed. She shivered, peering into the darkness. For weeks, she felt watched, like the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. The chilling whispers of the wind filled her ears. Neighborhood gossip loomed like storm clouds overhead. Claire gripped her keys tightly as she passed murmuring neighbors, their words fading into silence as if afraid to speak her name. What was happening in Maplewood? Each night, the world grew darker, and the tension thicker, wrapping around her like the cloth of the heavy winter coat she wore. Inside her little home, her children awaited her return. Ethan, her bright-eyed 6-year-old, had recently become enamored with Mr. Grady, the reclusive old man at the end of their street. "He knows about ghosts, Mom," Ethan would say, excitement bubbling in his voice. Claire felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She'd heard the stories, childhood rumors that shrouded Mr. Grady in mystery. Most folks kept their distance, whispering about his hidden past. But Ethan was drawn to him like a moth to flame. Mist floated in the air, swirling with her thoughts as strange occurrences crept into her life. Snowflakes fell softly, concealing odd symbols that appeared overnight. Just the wind, she told herself as she brushed them away, exhaustion amplifying her paranoia. But the distant laughter of children echoed in her mind, blended with shadows tugging at her curiosity. If only the police would listen to her frantic worries, if only they hadn't dismissed her as just another tired, overworked mother. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As frigid nights turned into unbearable dread, Claire found herself digging into the town's dark folklore, sifting through books at the library until she stumbled upon tales of a curse that shadowed families in Maplewood. The curse had claimed Joy, and now, it was creeping toward her home. Doors creaked open on their own. She would awaken at night, senses alert, only to find the weight of whispers clinging to her walls. Shadows crowded the windows, pulling her children closer to something unknown. Determined to confront her fears for her children's sake, Claire finally faced Mr. Grady, demanding answers about the sinister occurrences consuming their lives. What lurked within the drift of snow in Maplewood was deeper than tales and whispers. It was intertwined with her family's very foundation. As realization dawned, heavy with betrayal, a knock rattled her door, splintering the night with dread. A chill swept through her, suffocating in its intensity as her breath caught in her throat. The shadows waited outside, writhing against the panes as she hesitated. Her heart raced, pounding against her chest like a drum, the darkness outside whispering secrets. Who could be there, waiting just beyond her threshold? Her instincts screamed at her to run, but the truth was about to emerge, dark and terrible, pulling her closer into the chilling embrace of Maplewood's history. The knock came again, louder this time. It echoed through the house, a sound that dug into her very bones. Claire stood frozen, her mind racing through 1,000 possibilities. Who could it be? A neighbor? A stranger? She glanced around the dimly lit living room, searching for peace in the unsettling silence that enveloped her home. Ethan was peeking out from behind the couch, his bright eyes wide with fear. "Mom, who is it?" he whispered, his voice trembling. A part of Claire wanted to reassure him, to tell him it was nothing, but the truth clawed at her throat. She didn't feel safe. The air thickened around her, electric with a tension that was almost palpable. "Stay here," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. She moved toward the door, every step a battle against her pounding heart, which felt like it could burst out of her chest. With shaking hands, she reached for the doorknob, cold under her fingers. She hesitated, heart racing, uncertainty coursing through her like ice water. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door just enough to peer outside. The wind howled, whipping snowflakes into her face. A figure stood in the shadows, their features obscured. Claire squinted, straining to see, her pulse quickening again. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face that sent a jolt of fear through her. Mr. Grady. His skin was pale, almost ghostly against the dark night. Shadows lurked in the creases of his eyes, making them appear hollow, as if he held the weight of every dark secret that had been buried in the town. "Claire, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "About what?" she demanded, forcing the words out despite the quiver in her throat. "The curse," he replied, stepping closer. "It's coming for your family. Your children." A sudden rush of wind sent chills racing down her spine. She glanced back at Ethan, who was still hiding behind the couch, dread pooling in her stomach. She could feel it growing, the threat looming over them. "What do you mean? What do you know?" Claire's voice rose in urgency. "It's tied to the symbols," he said, nodding toward the window where the one from last night lay hidden under a blanket of snow. "They're warnings. Each one represents a child lost to the curse." "What do I do?" she pressed, panic flooding her. "Trust no one," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the gusts of wind. "They'll come for you, too." "They all do." Before Claire could respond, a thunderous crash resonated from behind her. The sound of splintering wood pulled her attention from Mr. Grady. The back door had flung open, caught by a powerful gust. Ethan screamed, his little voice echoing through the hall. The shadows outside darted in a frenzy, rushing past her as the room grew darker. A figure emerged from the storm, cloaked in a swirling mass of snow, a child's silhouette, but not one she recognized. Frigid fear cloaked her as she squared her shoulders, knowing she had to face whatever horror awaited them. The figure stepped forward slowly, revealing a face half hidden beneath a mask of ice, a face eerily similar to her own child's but twisted, sinister. "Mommy, help me!" it shrieked, laughter spilling from its lips like shards of glass. Claire's breath stopped. The boy's eyes glowed with a hollow hunger as he moved closer, longing stretching across his features, a yearning that chilled her blood. Clenching her fists, panic engulfed her once more. The frosty air whispered her name in a chilling echo, the dark taunts gathering strength. Little Ethan's cries filled the air as the door slammed shut again, and the shadows seemed to close in around her. The whispers grew louder, voices rising into a cacophony as terror bubbled beneath the surface. "Someone's taken control. This isn't over." Mr. Grady growled, but Claire barely heard him over the mounting chaos in the room. Then, just when she thought all was lost and the darkness would consume them, a sharp light flickered, illuminating the whole space. But what stood before her wasn't a beacon of hope, it was an apparition, a ghostly figure that glimmered with malice, eyes glinting like shards of ice. Claire's breath hitched as the figure sneered, revealing teeth that gleamed with feral hunger. How could she protect her family? How far would she go to save them from whatever cursed history Maplewood held? The chilling realization washed over her like the first bite of winter. She was in a race against time, and darkness was already at the door. The air whipped around Claire like icy fingers, each gust laced with whispers that seemed to reach into her very soul. The sinister figure stood before her, that mocking smile twisting into something more grotesque. Every heartbeat pounded in her ears, drowning out everything else. "Mommy, help me!" it howled again, the voice a cruel imitation of Ethan's, a taunting echo that sank its icy claws into her heart. "Get back!" Claire screamed, her instincts screaming for her to protect her son. She lunged forward, her breath coming in sharp gasps as she shielded Ethan with her body. The apparition shrieked again, a piercing sound that shattered the fragile silence, and in that moment, fear turned to fury. "Leave us alone!" she bellowed, her voice a mixture of desperation and anger. But the figure remained, its hollow eyes fixed on her, hunger gleaming in their depths. It reached out with a skeletal hand, each finger elongated and bony, as if trying to grasp at the warmth of life. Claire felt as if time had slowed, a heavy dread settling over her. "Mom, what is happening?" Ethan whimpered, his tiny hands clutching her shirt, trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Nothing. Just stay close to me." Claire snapped, her protective instincts blaring. She had to act. "Mommy," the thing wailed, stepping further into the dim light. The ice surrounding its features began to melt, revealing a pale, faceless void beneath. Something inside her twisted at the sight. She glanced over her shoulder at Mr. Grady, who appeared uncertain, eyes darting to the darkness creeping in behind the figure. The walls of the house felt like they were closing in. The shadows were alive, writhing and pulsating with an energy that threatened to explode. "Grab the symbols. You'll need them," he shouted, but Claire didn't know how to move. Confusion clouded her, panic rooted her down. Before she could think, the apparition lunged. An icy blast filled the air, seeping into her bones. Claire instinctively pushed Ethan behind her, feeling paralyzed by fear and guilt. "Mommy!" Ethan cried again, his voice small and broken. With a surge of determination, Claire spun around, searching desperately for anything to use. The mantel was full of knickknacks, nothing could help. She felt Mr. Grady looming, pressing toward the door, his expression twisting in urgency. "Trust me, Claire," he yelled. "The symbols can hold it back." She snatched a small ceramic heart, decorating her home more than serving a purpose, and slammed it against the ground. The sound echoed through the room, and the apparition paused, the air crackling as if the house itself held its breath. With every ounce of strength, Claire shouted, "Get out of my house." The figure halted, its laughter melding into the soft curls of a winter wind. For a split second, Claire felt a flicker of hope. The darkness wavered. Then, it returned with fierce anger, swirling and engulfing the room. Suddenly, the phantoms of lost children filled the shadows, eyes wide with torment. They were a legion, every echo of laughter turning to cries for help, pleading for release. "Mommy!" cried her Ethan again, but he was slipping from her grasp. "Help me!" Claire turned, her heart racing. "I want to let you take him." But reality twisted as she stared at the frozen specters around her, the weight of her choices crashing down on her hard. Who was she really fighting? "Time is running out," Grady screamed, suddenly beside her. "What do I do?" Desperation clawed at Claire. "Sacrifice the heart," he ordered, half shouting against the chaos. She stared down at the shattered remnants, shards scattering like the pieces of her scattered thoughts, her entire life collapsing before her. But as Claire stepped closer to the horrid figure, a deep voice echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder of the burdens she had to bear. Could she sacrifice everything for the sake of the boy who had already slipped into this nightmare? Close-mouthed whispers echoed again, "They will come for you, you can't save them all." Ethan reached out, face contorted in fear as the shadows reached for him. He screamed, but the wails were now mixed with an eerie laughter, echoing through the rooms, almost orchestrating a dark symphony. As she doubled over in anguish, the very idea of sacrifice strangled her heart. The sudden darkness pressed in around them tighter still, and Claire realized that the real horror wasn't the figures pressing against her, it was the choice she had yet to make. And then, a new voice cut through the storm, a whispers of dread that promised to unravel everything. "What if it's not just the symbols? What if the curse is in you?" Everything went still, the chilling silence screamed louder than the chaos. Claire's gaze shifted to the dark corners of the room, and she felt the questions loom over her. What had she invited into her home, and what would she have to give up to end this nightmare? In that moment, shadows shifted ominously, the veil between worlds seeming thinner than ever. Claire's heart pounded with the weight of her next move. Could she unravel the truth hidden deep within her own family? And who would she sacrifice in the end? Claire felt herself being pulled towards the darkness, an overwhelming force pushing her instincts aside. The room around her shook, walls trembling as if they, too, were aware of the malevolence threatening to consume them. Mr. Grady's voice felt distant and muffled, a mere echo lost in the chaos. "Claire! Now!" he shouted, panic lacing his words. "You have to choose." She glanced back at Ethan, his little face twisted in terror, pure sorrow spilling from his wide eyes. "Mommy, please." He whimpered, his voice breaking her heart anew, each sound a dagger that pierced through the fog of fear enveloping her, but the shadows were calling to her, hungry whispers curling around her mind. They promised power but demanded a sacrifice. The heart she had shattered on the floor pulsed with a sickly glow, like a beacon in the suffocating gloom. It was beckoning her, whispering secrets she feared were true. "Why is this happening?" Claire breathed, her voice raw with desperation. The answer twisted in her gut, and she didn't dare speak it aloud. "Because of the choices you've made," the voice within the shadows hissed, seeping like smoke into the very marrow of her bones. "Face it, Claire. You brought this upon your family." "No!" she shouted back, shaking her head violently, as if she could free herself from the binding chains of guilt. She turned back to the symbol remnants at her feet, and for a moment, they seemed like the only lifeline in a sea of despair. "I can fix this." Mr. Grady's gaze met hers, wild and desperate. "Only you can end this." The heart sacrifice and the curse. His voice faltered under the weight of truth. Time felt like it was unraveling, each second dropping away like an autumn leaf. The figures surrounding them converged, ice-cold fingers grazing her skin. Claire recoiled but was held fast by a greater bond, the desperate need to protect Ethan. "Mommy!" he cried again, and the sound ripped through her resolve. The shadows yearned, twisting around their forms, and she felt the dark weight of despair coiling tighter around Ethan's small frame. "Let him go!" she screamed, summoning all her fury and love. The shadows recoiled for a fleeting moment, and Claire seized the chance. She threw herself toward the heart and gathered the shards, every pulsating piece glowing with the weight of memories. "Please, I'll do it!" she cried, tears streaming down her face, hot and palpable against the icy tendrils trying to invade her. "I'll give you my heart if it keeps him safe." As the words escaped her, a deafening laughter erupted, hollow and cruel. The apparition's mouth widened in a grotesque grin, the faceless void seeming to absorb the light around it. Behind it stood the lost children, their eyes illuminating like hollow lanterns, begging for compassion but thirsting for revenge. "What if it's too late?" they echoed, a choir of anguish. "What if your sacrifice is what we crave?" "No!" Claire bellowed, a sudden fierce determination surging through her veins. In that heartbeat, clarity struck. She had to confront her demons, not just the shadows around her. She gripped a shard of the heart and in a moment of wild courage, pressed it against her own chest. "I won't let this endanger my son," she vowed, voice steady, a spark igniting within her swirling despair. The shadows recoiled as if struck, the laughter stopping abruptly, giving way to a dreadful silence. Just as quickly, the apparition moved towards her, eyes narrowing. "Such a brave choice, but sacrifice carries its own price, Claire." A chill washed over her. The shadows grew thicker, pulsating with a new fervor of rage, and in that instant, Claire realized that the darkness was not just an external threat but her own past, her family's buried secrets clawing their way out. The shadowy face moved closer, its icy breath brushing against her. "You'll pay for your choice, but what will you lose in the end?" Ethan's frightened eyes searched hers. "Mommy?" The walls trembled, but beneath the terror, a flicker of hope sparked. In that moment, Claire understood she wasn't just fighting for Ethan's life, she was fighting for the truth. A truth that could undo the horrors gripping them if only she dared to face it. The shadows coiled tighter, darkness tightening its stranglehold. "Who will you really save, Claire?" The choice is coming. With those words hanging in the space between them, Claire's heart pounded, and she stepped into the abyss, the lines of sacrifice and salvation blurring, what truth would she uncover, and at what cost? The darkness surged, a living entity suffocating the air around her. Claire's pulse quickened. Each beat felt intermingled with the ominous thundering of whispers, secrets clawing at her sanity. She raised the shard against her chest, but her arm trembled beneath its weight. "Mommy!" Ethan's plea cut through the chaos, sharp and desperate. The shadows pulsed, writhing like 1,000 serpents, and with each second, they pressed closer, eager to engulf them both. "I want to let this happen," she declared, forcing strength into her voice. The glowing shard flickered like a candle in a storm, and she willed her heart to resonate with its light. "I choose him over you." But the shadows merely laughed, a dry, rustling sound, rich with malice. The children's faces morphed among the swirling dark, soft features hardening into grotesque masks of fury. Their voices melded into a cacophony. "What will you sacrifice, Claire? That is the truth you dread to confront." A ripple of panic coursed through her. "I'll sacrifice anything. Just let him go," she screamed, her throat raw. The specter loomed closer, its breath freezing her skin. "But what does your heart hold? Those you've wronged, the lives you buried, they crave more than mere offerings. They demand acknowledgement." Claire's heart wrenched under the weight of her past, memories flooding like dark waters, choices made in anger, lies whispered in the dead of night, doors closed forever on the innocent. She could feel each shadow extending its cold fingers into her mind, teasing out her sorrows, her regrets. "Face them," the voice charged. "Let your guilt surface, only then will you know what to pay." "Stop!" Claire cried, burying her face in her hands, trying to block their accusations. The memories twisted, becoming a harrowing nightmare. She could hear the laughter of those she had wronged, the echoes of choices that had chained her, bound her to this wretched fate. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice broke her trance. She looked down, desperate to shield him from the creeping dread. But his small frame seemed distanced, lost in the narrowing chasm of terror. Shadows fanned out like predatory beasts, ready to strike. "Claire, the heart." Mr. Grady's voice emerged again, faint yet insistent, urging her toward the truth. "What is it worth to you? Choose wisely." Sweat beaded on her brow, the weight of her choice towering above her. Each breath felt jagged, sharp as she gripped the shard tighter, an anchor in the abyss. "I want to lose him," she bellowed. "I choose to confront my mistakes. I choose the truth." The shadows recoiled, a visceral reaction echoing through the room. Their howls mutated into a terrible wailing, tumbling through the darkness like waves in a storm. Claire felt sparks of connection, strings of light flickering as she confronted her past. One by one, the faces emerged from the dark: a childhood friend she abandoned, a lover she betrayed, a parent cast aside in her quest for freedom. "To be free, you must feel the cost," the apparition whispered, its voice a sugary poison. A gut-wrenching sob escaped her. "I acknowledge you. I acknowledge everything I've done." Tears flowed freely, mixing with the heat of her fervor, the shard pulsing against her chest as if responding to her pain. "I'm sorry. Please, I beg you, let us go." The shadows began to ripple, but the sacrifice required lingered, high in the air. Claire could sense it, an aching demand for retribution tucked within her turbulent heart. "Let him go," she roared, the words slicing through the oppressive fog. The air grew still, an unbearable silence hanging over them. Could please validate her sacrifice? Or would this be an endless cycle of torment? In that moment of hope, the shadows shifted, swirling in a new frenzy. "You've spoken the truth, but it's only the first step. What will you truly endure? What will be the ultimate cost?" A low growl reverberated through the walls, and Ethan trembled at her side. The shadows boiled, the darkness honing in. A realization crushed her, all her regrets, fears, and responsibilities coiling tightly within her. What will I lose?" she choked out, the question falling like an anvil in the stillness. With that, a blinding light flickered, illuminating the room, making her shield her eyes. Claire was forced to confront the shadow, pulses of light and dark intertwining. As the figures shimmered and called her name, Claire understood this was an awakening. Who will pay the price? The spectre hissed, its voice like ice, swirling with anger. She had a choice to make. But at what cost? Time ran thin, and the fate of them all hung precariously in the balance. The question lingered like a fog: what truth would emerge, and what would it ultimately claim? The darkness trembled, ready to unleash its wrath. The blinding light cut through the darkness, illuminating the twisted shadows lurking at the edges of Claire's vision. Each spectre seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a distorted echo of the pain and sorrow she had buried deep within herself. Her heart raced, each thud urging her to take action, yet doubt clawed at her insides. "Mommy," Ethan's quivering voice sliced through her fear, desperation clinging to his words. She turned towards him, desperation paralyzing her. "Please don't leave me." Claire reached out, her trembling hand weaving through the soft glow that enveloped them. She needed him safe, she would face whatever it took. "I'm right here, Ethan. I won't let them take you," she croaked, forcing the words past the knot in her throat. But her resolve wavered with every echo of the spectre's mocking laughter, each one a reminder of her failures. "Do you understand the weight of truth?" The spectre hissed, looming larger amidst the swirling shadows. "To face it, to acknowledge yourself? It will cost you more than you can imagine." "Enough!" Claire screamed, the sound barely a whisper against the chaos. The shadows leapt, their forms twisting and converging, shrieking in a cacophony of rage. "I won't let your fear control me." But the spectre only shifted closer, the air thickening with cold, and Claire felt her courage evaporate. "You think you can stand against this?" it taunted. "The past always demands a price. Decide." The glowing shard in her hand pulsed wildly, as if alive. This was the moment she had to choose. Claire's thoughts raced, drowning in memories of the people she had hurt. Faces, voices, each a reminder of her pain, her guilt. One particular face haunted her tonight. Julia, her childhood friend, who had spoken her truth before tragedy tore them apart. "Julia," Claire whispered, remembering the last time they were together, the argument, the silence that followed. Every moment wrapped tight with secrecy and regret, clawing at her soul. "What about her? Will you carry that guilt forever?" The spectre sneered. "What will you sacrifice to be rid of it?" Claire's heart sank. Would acknowledging Julia's pain free her? The shadows weaved closer, curling like smoke around her legs, urging her to comply with their malicious demands. "I'm sorry." Claire shouted, a raw apology, her voice fueled by desperation. "I'm sorry for everything." For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated. The air crackled, electrifying with tension. But they didn't retreat. Instead, they twisted tighter, their momentum claiming her. "And to be truly free, what will you concede?" The spectre whispered, its voice dripping with malice. "I choose to confess." Claire cried, conviction breaking through her fear. "I will not hide from the pain anymore." The shadows roared with fury, a visceral storm that threatened to swallow her whole. But at that moment, Ethan let go of her hand. Fear surged through Claire as she turned, catching him stepping bravely forward, his small frame undaunted by the darkness. "Mommy, don't be scared. We can fight this together." Ethan commanded, his innocence defying the terror that enveloped them. A spark ignited within Claire, a fierce, protective love mixed with the haunted weight of responsibility. She couldn't lose him, she wouldn't let the shadows consume them both. "Ethan! Come back!" She screamed, but the shadows began swirling around her son, pulling at him like a tidal wave. "Hold my hand!" she yelled, her own desperation echoing in his pleading eyes. But the darkness tightened its grip, the air thickening as Ethan gasped, his small body caught in its menacing embrace. "Choose your sacrifice, Claire." The specter roared, the shadows vibrating with malignant energy, overshadowing her. Panic coursed through her veins, each second stretching into eternity. "No! I'll sacrifice whatever it takes." As she shouted, the shard flared brilliantly, illuminating the chaos for the briefest moment. The realization crashed down upon her like a thunderclap. What if she had to sacrifice her very own truth to save him? Memory surged as the specters of her past whispered, trembling with longing. But was she ready to confront that cost? The shadows prowled, hungry and waiting, a sinister reminder that whatever truth would emerge would exact a heavy toll. In her heart, Claire knew the true price was yet to be revealed, and the specter's voice lingered, dripping with hunger. "Will you embrace the ultimate darkness for a chance at light?" The shadows rumbled ominously, and Claire's breath hitched in her throat. What would she sacrifice? What truth lay waiting, hidden in the depths? Time was slipping away, and the shadows would not wait. The shadows roared louder, drowning out any fleeting hope Claire clung to. She could feel their breath against her skin, icy, hungry. Her heart thumped in her chest, each pulse a countdown to choices that would haunt her forever. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice raw, desperate. The darkness twisted tighter around him, its grip wrenching the air from her lungs. A scream bubbled up, but she forced it down. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for him. "I will face my truth," she shouted into the swirling void, but the shadows responded with cruel laughter. "What do you really know of truth?" it mocked. Each word sliced through the churning chaos, ringing in her ears. In that second, the shard pulsed at her side, a beacon of light battling against the gloom. Could she wield it? Could it truly sever the ties of her past? Claire took a step forward, steadying herself, bringing the shard closer to her heart. This was no longer just a fight for her, it was a fight for Ethan's future. As she moved, the shadows twitched, recoiling from the light. "Stay back!" she cried, swinging the shard in a desperate arc. For a split second, it worked. Faint trails of darkness retreated, swirling in confusion. But it wouldn't last. They congregated, darkness forming a more formidable shape, emerging in the guise of lost loved ones. There stood Julia, eyes hollow yet brimming with wounds Claire had inflicted, a reminder of every moment she chose silence. "Claire," her friend whispered, voice a mere echo on the wind. "You can't escape this." "Julia," every word faltered on Claire's lips. Here was the truth, staring at her with expectancy, daring her to speak. The weight of her guilt felt crushing, yet liberating in its own right. "The past calls for your sacrifice, Claire," the specter hissed, blocking Julia from view. Shadows surged around her, clamoring for resolution, for pain past and justice served. Claire's resolve dimmed as she fought against their chorus. What would it take? "Mommy!" Ethan's cry broke through, a lifeline woven with desperation. "Don't listen to them. We are stronger together." His words ignited a spark of defiance within her. "Together!" Claire echoed, defiance and terror mingling in her throat. "I want to let you drown us." She thrust the shard forward, summoning every ounce of will she had. The light surged, expanding outward. But the specter laughed, tremors rippling through the air, engulfing them in a cacophony of voices, a montage of regrets rising to a fever pitch. Receiving truth demands a cost beyond belief. "What will you pay, Claire?" Her throat dry, panic coursing through her veins, she shouted, "I'm ready." But she couldn't speak the words weighing down her heart, the ones that could cleverly incinerate the shadows of her past. Claire forced herself to drag them up from the depths, the bile-heavy fears clinging to her tongue. Would they resurface to reshape her reality? Would owning them free Ethan? The shadows began to solidify, twisting around Julia's figure. "Face me," Julia beckoned, her voice fragile yet insistent. You can't hide any longer. And then it hit a memory she'd locked away, a truth she couldn't bear to admit. Julia hadn't just sought understanding, she had begged Claire to share her heart, to break the silence, and Claire had failed. I kept you at arm's length, Claire whispered, betrayal tasting bitter. I should have listened. I wanted you to share my truth, Julia replied, her voice soft. To be free of this weight. But you turned away. Guilt raged through Claire, a storm of grief and redemption smashing against her heart. In surrendering her silence, would she finally break the cycle holding Ethan captive? Let me face my truth. Let it set us free. Claire screamed, the light enveloping her, each flicker resonating with intention. The shadows screamed in response, thrashing violently, desperate to reclaim their hold. Will you forsake everything? The spectre roared, shadows clawing at the air. What will you give for this truth? The shard pulsed wildly in her grasp, its warmth brightening even as the grip of darkness fought back. I'll give everything. Claire shouted defiantly, standing resolute, prepared for the wrath of their past. But in that moment of declaration, a surge of fear engulfed her, a feeling that perhaps the shadows would take her instead, leaving Ethan behind. Would the price be too high? Darkness coiled tighter than ever, and Claire felt her resolve faltering. As the shadows pooled around them, she realized she had to make her choice not just for her own salvation, but for Ethan's, and then she knew, the price of truth was about to be revealed, and the darkness would always demand a testimony. Claire's scream shattered the heavy veil of despair as she faced the dark apparition of Julia. The spectral figure shimmered, distorting and contorting into a grotesque display of her past mistakes. Each flicker of the shard shed bright light, illuminating the shadows, but they fought back fiercely, growling with rage, a deafening sound that echoed in the empty space. Your courage is admirable, but foolish, hissed the shadows, their whispers slithering around her like serpents. What you give, we shall take, but more awaits than simple sacrifice. Trust in the past, and it will return what you owe. Ethan's panicked voice cut through the noise. Mommy. Don't listen to them. We'll find a way out. Claire's heart raced, torn between the love for her son and the growing shadows that blocked their escape. She clutched the shard tighter, its warmth offering fragile solace in this tempest of nightmares. The past doesn't own me. She shouted back into the darkness. Her breath came fast, each inhale laced with dread. I want to let it claim my future. Suddenly, a deep rumbling shook the ground beneath her feet. The laughter grew, reverberating off unseen walls. The weight of your truth is vast, and its echoes will resound in eternity. Julia's face twisted in sorrow and mockery, tears of darkness streaming down her cheeks. I loved you. Claire shouted, desperation mingling with resolve. I loved you, but I was scared. Scared of losing you. With each confession, the shard's light flared, pushing back against the herd of wailing shadows. They recoiled in horror, but new forms emerged, figures from her past, each lost connection swirling in a grotesque dance. Face us. They lured her closer, faces she recognized from happier times. Friends. Family. Smiling faces twisted in grimacing mockery now, taunting her with every wrong turn. You abandoned us. You let us go. The pain of her choices throbbed through her body like a dark wave, each regret a brick in her chest. As if sensing this shift, the shadows retaliated, lunging toward Ethan with a feral growl. Panic coursed through Claire, and she shouted, "Stay away from him." In that moment of pure instinct, light erupted from the shard, bright enough to sear through the blackness. Shadows shrieked and recoiled, but not all were driven away. A sense of urgency pressed down on her like a vice. I need you, Ethan. Fight. Ethan's small frame appeared in the soft glow of the shard, and Claire could see determination blazing behind his fearful eyes. Together. He echoed, shaking off the encroaching darkness. Together, Claire repeated, heart roaring, ready to embrace the burden of her choices. I want to let them steal you. The light surged again, wrapping around them like a protective embrace, but the shadows shrieked louder, twisting and converging, seeking to break this moment of unity. You think this light can save you? A figure hissed, a mass of tangled grief and anger. Truth has a price, and it's your soul. The shadows pressed closer, a squirming mass hungry for her despair. The air was heavy, thick with lost voices. Memories clawed at her, urging her to succumb, but Claire stood firm, heart pounding like a war drum. I refuse to let the darkness define us. The light blazed brighter, resonating with the truth buried deep inside her. I was wrong. She cried, the weight of her past cutting through her defenses. I should have been there for you. Julia's face flickered before her again, pain and realization dawning. Truth is a mirror, reflecting all that you are. The shards began to splinter, illuminating everything around them in a blinding radiance. Shadows thrashed in anger, reeling back from the purity of Claire's resolve. But as the darkness faltered, another voice rose above the chaos, deeper than the rest. Does she dare defy all that we've come to claim? It boomed, resonating through the void. Suddenly, the world shifted, fracturing into pieces, and Claire felt her grip on Ethan slipping. No! She screamed, reaching for him as the shadows surged forward. His terrified gaze matched hers, filled with uncertainty. Terror wrapped around Claire like a blanket, folding her into despair. With all her strength, she fought to hold on to both truth and light. Would the weight of her past now shatter the fragile connection that bound them? Ethan, stay close. Claire yelled, but the distance between them widened, shadows closing in like a predator stalking its prey. They were losing ground, the darkness tightening around them, devouring hope. What awaited them on the other side of her choices? As the light flickered and dimmed, a chilling realization settled in: some truths were perilous, and they had yet to confront the darkest specter of all. Could they survive the cost of enlightenment? The shadows howled again, demanding a reckoning. The true price was yet to be unveiled, and in that moment of chaos, sharp and consuming, Claire felt a cold grip on her heart. Claire's vision blurred, the edges of reality warping like heat rising off asphalt. The cold grip around her heart tightened, squeezing the hope from her chest. She could hear the whispers in the shadows, their voices a symphony of despair and betrayal. Let go. Let it take you. No. Claire demanded, grounding herself in her fear. She could barely see Ethan now, just a flicker of pale light behind a wall of writhing darkness. I want to let you lose him. The shadows hissed in response, their whispers much louder now. You think you can fight us? You think love can conquer the past? We are the embodiment of your failures. We hold the truth you dare not confront. The voices twisted like blades in her mind, accusations cutting deep. Buried choices bubbled to the surface, each one alive and thrashing against her will. Claire clutched the shard, her fingers burning against its surface. A surge of warmth enveloped her, igniting the memories with a fierce realization. Bring it on! She shouted defiantly, channeling the pain into anger. The shadows hesitated, recoiling just as her love for Ethan bolstered her spirit. Each whispered regret formed a bleeding wound, but her resolve was sharper. I want to be defined by my mistakes. With that, she plunged the shard into the ground. Light erupted from the point of impact, a round sun amidst the encroaching night. It crackled and pulsed, driving the shadows back momentarily. Faces twisted in anguish as they screeched, their ethereal forms flickering under the swarm of brilliance. Mommy! Ethan's voice was a pinprick of sound in the chaos, trembling and strained. I can't see you. Claire maneuvered toward him through the thinning darkness, heart racing. I'm right here, Ethan. Just keep fighting. The air crackled around them, electricity mixed with malice. The shadows whispered, spinning deeper fears. Your truth will be your end, Claire. Think of Julia, think of all you lost. Time slowed as her mind raced, dragging her back to memories so vivid they stung. Guilt and love, intertwined like roots of a dying tree. Every wrong turn, every moment of silence, blossoming into a hot knot of despair. How could her love for Ethan compete with such horror? But then she heard it, a whisper, familiar and warm, cutting through the chaos. You can overcome this. Julia? Claire gasped, bewildered. The shard pulsed with energy, somehow responding to the voice, swirling with reflections of the past, the pain, the love. The figure of Julia flickered into view, still shimmering with sorrow but now etched with understanding. Claire, you must accept. It's not the end, but the beginning. The shadows roared, furious at the re-emergence of power. You dare embrace the truth? Then pay the toll. Suddenly, shadows surged forward like a tidal wave, overwhelming the protective light. Claire staggered, but something shifted inside her. The unity of love, regret, and strength ignited a fire in her heart. She could feel it, a heartbeat aligned with Ethan's, a pulse that thrummed with life. She thrust the shard forward, channeling everything, the dark and the light, into one blinding lance of energy. It split the air, shattering the echoes of the past. The shadows screeched, revealing faces twisted in rage and sorrow, and in their twisting forms, Claire saw herself. Mommy! Ethan cried again, voice cracking with panic. I'm here. I want to let you go. Claire felt weightless, a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She turned to Julia, who now flickered like a dying flame. Help me save him. Julia nodded, tears in her eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. You have the power to break the cycle. Embrace the truth. As the shadows grasped at Ethan, desperate to claim him, Claire's resolve solidified. With her heart pounding and the shard glowing fiercely, she prepared to wield her truth, once and for all, but before she could act, the darkness writhed. No! This cannot be. We own you. The air hummed with chaos, as figures of her past morphed into grotesque parodies. We won't let you escape. I'm done with this. Claire shouted, summoning all her strength. The light flickered, edging on the brink of collapse. Shadows pressed in, hungry for despair. Would she have the courage to face the truth? In that moment, as the world began to devour itself, a deafening crack split through the cacophony. It was time to confront everything she had tried so desperately to forget. Ethan! She screamed, feeling the connection slip through her fingers like sand. Glimmers of darkness rained down, swirling like a storm, feeding on fear, ready to unleash their fury. Could she find the power inside her to protect them both? Or would the shadows consume her truth, sealing their doom for eternity? The darkness twisted, and Claire knew she was standing at the edge of an abyss, ready or not. The storm of shadows roared around Claire, menacing figures swirling like a monstrous tide. She could feel the darkness tugging at her heart, pulling her closer to their gaping maw. Panic raced through her veins, but she couldn't let fear dictate her actions any longer. In that dreadful moment, she realized the only way to save Ethan was to face the truth, a truth entwined with her very soul. Mommy! Please! Ethan's terrified voice echoed through the swirling chaos, and every fiber of Claire's being ignited with determination. She couldn't let him go. Not now. Stand strong, Ethan. We'll fight together. She shouted, recalling the deep love she held for her son. The heartache, the guilt, the shadows of what had been lost, I must wield them to shield him. With a fierce grip on the shard, Claire pressed it to the ground, energy sparking like a wildfire around them. The light erupted, illuminating the distorted faces lurking in the dark. Specters twisted in agony, screams of betrayal filling the air as Claire held firm. I am not a prisoner of my past. I choose to confront it. She declared, voice resonating with newfound strength. The shadows recoiled, revealing Ethan again, his small frame flickering like a light amongst the encroaching darkness. Mommy! He cried out, voice strained but filled with hope. The connection between them surged, clarity slicing through the fear. I love you, Ethan. I'll always fight for you. The shards of her past flooded her mind, regrets, misdeeds, broken promises, and she opened her heart to them, channeling the pain into fierce resolve. I acknowledge my mistakes. I want to let the darkness take you. The air buzzed with energy as the shard blazed with light, a beacon cutting through the storm. Each moment of regret transformed into strength, illuminating the room with an ethereal glow. We are stronger than the shadows. Together, we can break this curse. The specter responded with a howl, conjured by anger and rage. The past will consume you. You cannot escape it. But Claire stood undeterred. She spun the shard in her hand, directing its energy, light bursting forth like a star igniting the night. I won't run anymore. The shadows snarled, waves of darkness lashing out like tendrils seeking to ensnare her. Claire stepped forward, wielding the remnants of her choices like armor against the howling abyss. Let my love for my son break this cycle, Claire bellowed, standing her ground. I will sacrifice anything to protect him. The glow surged, transmuting regrets into brilliant hopes. The figures flickered as whispers of memories swirled around her, a childhood friend, an estranged family member, each one capturing her heart. Face what you've shunned. Julia's ghostly figure emerged from the chaos, shimmering with understanding. Let your truth be known. Claire bowed her head, the weight of her past crashing over her as tears heralded her truth. I was wrong. I should have been there for you, to hear your cries. With those words, the shadows screamed, recoiling from the illuminating warmth of her confession. Light flickered in a blazing halo, snuffing out their power. Mommy! Ethan gasped as the darkness began to shatter around them. The light grew stronger as Claire lifted the shard high, summoning everything she had: her love, her grief, her undying resolve. Yes! Together! She cried again, and the bond between them solidified, manifesting in a brilliant incandescent arc enveloping Ethan. The shadows screamed once more, now desperately coiling away from them. Aha! Echoed the specters, their forms melding into the overwhelming glow. They fought against the light but found themselves vanishing, consumed by the very truths Claire embraced. This cannot be. Claire forged ahead, illuminating the darkest corners of her mind. You are not my shackles. You cannot own me. One final surge came, an eruption of strength. With a guttural scream, Claire pressed the shard deep into the ground. The world trembled as the energy exploded, an incandescent bloom engulfing them both. Light radiated, sweeping over the shadows like a wave. Breaking through a storm, silence shattered through the chaos, and with a glorious eruption, the darkness shattered into a million sparkling fragments, dissolving like smoke. Claire's vision cleared, the storm dissipating as sunlight broke through the storm clouds. The abandoned faces faded, leaving behind a tranquil echo of release. She collapsed onto her knees, breathing heavily, looking for Ethan. Ethan! Mommy! His voice was like a symphony after a tempest. He rushed to her, throwing his small arms around her neck, laughter bubbling through tears. We did it. We're safe. Claire held him tightly, a wave of relief crashing over her. They had emerged from the depths of darkness, innocent love conquering despair. Yes, baby. We did. As the sun bathed their home in warmth, the weight of tragedy faded, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. The curse that had gripped Maplewood was free, its hold undone. Claire looked at Ethan, his bright eyes sparkling like stars reborn. The darkness had threatened everything, but they had faced it together. A promise lingered in the air, unspoken but palpable: she would do anything for him, fiercely protect him. I love you, Ethan, she whispered, tears of joy filtering through catastrophe. And finally, she smiled. They turned back towards their home, united against whatever lay ahead, no longer bound by the shadows or the past, only illuminated by the light of truth and love. This is the moment you've been waiting for, folks. Be sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help support our journey together. And let us take it a step further, flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this tense conclusion. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who are craving chills and thrills, so don't wait even one more second. Only true fans truly understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep this community alive.